First, I'd like to just provide a really brief introduction to what AgeWise Colorado is. Our goal in life is to be the premier resource hub for aging Coloradans and their families. Whether you are here in this, you're part of the sandwich generation, you are a current caregiver or maybe a future caregiver. And then we have the folks on this side of the sandwich who are possibly looking for information and service providers who can help them with their aging requirements. There are nearly 3 million Coloradans who are over the age of 40, and that 3 million is our target market for what we're doing with AgeWise. So we are a nonprofit. We launched last summer. So a lot of people are coming to the site, not just to look for service providers, which would be folks who provide these kinds of services, but also to become informed and educated about this whole variety of aging related issues.
And our mission is to expand public access to innovative music making and music therapy services. So innovative music making, I know people are going to wonder what that is. So that would be, for example, a person living with Parkinson's disease who's always wanted to play the piano. And as music therapists, we know a lot about the brain and about various diagnoses, and so we're able to adapt things in a way that your typical music educator is not going to be able to do. We also have an adaptive music lab where we have adaptive equipment that makes music accessible to everyone, regardless of their physical limitations. So if someone is not able to move their fingers, we have instruments that can be played with just the touch of a button or different things like that. So that's what innovative music making means. And now I'll go into a little bit about music therapy. So we use a neuroscience approach to using music. I know many of you may have heard that music is a right-brained activity, and that's actually not true. Music uses so many different parts of the brain. So this is from an old article, but this is showing different parts of the brain that are involved with musical activity. And you can see it's a number of different things. So melodies, so the pitches of a song, like that's going to get your right hemisphere going. If I start adding in the words to it, my only sunshine, then we'll start getting in some language areas of your brain. And if we start including some rhythm, then we start getting motor areas of the brain going. So different aspects of music excite different areas of the brain. So music is actually made up of all these different elements. And as music therapists, we're trained musicians. So we do things live because we're trained musicians so that we can really hone in on the elements of music that are most helpful for what we're doing. So anybody, say, for example, someone with Parkinson's or a stroke survivor or a brain injury survivor that's struggling with movement or coordination, rhythm is going to be one of the most important elements because rhythm is actually processed in motor areas of our brain. And then I don't know if any of you have heard of the phenomenon where there are stroke survivors who have trouble getting words out after a stroke but can still sing fluently. Has anybody heard of that? I see some nods. So that's because melody is processed in the right hemisphere of our brain. And so we use melody and having people sing to help recover some of their speech after a stroke. So really we use these different aspects of music to work on different things in therapy. And each of these elements and what we know about them is actually quite a lot. So there's sort of a misconception that a music therapist is just a musician that's decided that they want to help people, but actually everyone in our practice has a master's degree in music therapy and has training in neuroscience as well, so that we can understand the research. For example, people are largely unaware that there's a ton of research on music and different elements of music and how it's processed. So this is showing that in the year 2020, there were over 7,000 research studies published about how we process musical rhythm. So there's a whole field of music neuroscientists that are neuroscientists that study the brain, and they only focus on how we process music. The reason that they do that is because music is processed differently than other things. And so we often see people do things in music that they don't do in other scenarios. So for example, the stroke survivor who sings fluently but doesn't speak fluently and things like that. So again, you think about in 1 year, there were over 7,000 studies on just rhythm, but look at how many different elements of music there are. And so this is why we have a master's degree in music therapy, is because there's a lot of research that goes into the techniques that we use and, inform what we're doing with individuals. So what does it look like? I'm going to skip that for a minute. We do all kinds of things in sessions. We can do individual sessions. We have some adaptive music making groups, which I'll talk about in a minute. A lot of people with more advanced dementia, or people who are looking for us to address specific needs. That's where we do individual sessions. And then we also do some groups in the community. So that with the Rocky Mountain Stroke Center, the Parkinson Association, and the Brain Injury Alliance. And then we do go out to a number of facilities, memory care facilities as well. And then we also have our Rocky Mountain Aphasia Chorale. So the chorale is made up of stroke survivors, again, who may struggle with getting words out, but sing fluently. And really the goal is to celebrate rather than constantly focusing on, what they've lost due to their stroke, really switching and focusing on celebrating what they can still contribute. I also want to share that I have an upcoming research study that I'm doing for my dissertation, where I've developed a caregiver training program for people who are living at home and taking care of someone who has dementia and is specifically struggling with sundowning. Sundowning is symptoms of agitation in the late afternoon or evening. And so we are going to be starting a research study in January. We're just starting to recruit for that. So if you or anyone you know is taking care of someone living with dementia at home who gets agitated in the late afternoon and evening, this is an opportunity to participate in research. The goal of this program is to teach caregivers of people with dementia who are living at home how to use music to reduce sundowning, because again, with dementia, just like I mentioned with stroke survivors, in dementia, people lose the ability to process and engage with language. Their language abilities deteriorate, but their ability to process music stays intact through the whole Alzheimer's disease process. And so that's why you see you may have seen clips online or, Alive Inside or different things of why people still respond so strongly to music, even in advanced stages of dementia. And it all goes back to that neuroscience of music. So this is a program where I translate the science into just real practical things that caregivers can do to reduce agitation. So here's our contact information in our website if you have any other questions. And I think we're holding questions to the end. Is that correct?
Yes.
Barbara? Okay.
Yes, unless, I think we've got a small enough group. Does anyone have any questions? Let's just kind of throw them out now. I actually have two.
Okay.
One is, do you do any remote work with people?
Yes, and we do. And we actually, a lot of our programs are so unique that we actually have a fair amount of people from other states that join in. So some of our groups include people from other states. And thank you, Karen, for the question. Medicare does not cover music therapy, and Medicaid, core Medicaid does not. There are Medicaid waivers for people with developmental disabilities that cover music therapy, but there's nothing for on Medicaid for older adults that covers music therapy. So that's why we do those community groups, because really the only other option is private pay, unfortunately.
I guess my other question would be, based on what you've shared with us, which is fascinating information, I presume that music therapy would be helpful, maybe even especially with other mental health conditions, or just in general as we age, to keep us going and stimulated.
Making music is one of the best things you can do for your brain for aging. So there's actually research out there about because making music, being an active music maker, even if you have zero training, if you're trying to learn the piano or if learning the guitar or something like that, and trying to make music with someone or just by yourself, it engages so many different parts of your brain that they've actually shown musicians have a lower risk of dementia and some other things. It really keeps your brain active and engages so many different parts of your brain. So singing is also wonderful for you, especially, singing in a group also has a lot of social benefits as well. And playing music in a group has a lot of social benefits. So those are kinds of the things that are why music making. EBD waiver does not cover music therapy. Correct, Karen?
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Really appreciate all your knowledge and sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
Sienna, can we have you tell us about the Equine Partnership and your programs?
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, no echoing this time.
Good. So my name is Sienna Dodgen. I am the Executive Director of the Equine Partnership Program. Equine Partnership Program is a nonprofit organization based in Parker, Colorado. This month, we're celebrating our 16th year in operation. We offer equine assisted mental health services to individuals of all ages. In all of our programs, we are taking traditional therapy sessions and activities out of an office setting and bringing them into a barn. Mary, who is joining us, will be talking about our Equine Elders program in a second. But we also have a number of different programs that we do offer. We host individual equine assisted psychotherapy sessions and learning sessions. So in that program, our adult and youth clients come out to the barn and they work through different activities, and they can start to apply some of the lessons that they learn while working with the horses to the changes that they need to make in their lives. Our work with horses can provide people the tools to allow them to gain self-understanding, healing, and emotional growth. We also offer programming for school systems. So we do school-based life skills programs. In those programs, we customize 6 to 9 week training programs for groups of students who come out through their school. And each week, those groups will join us at the barn to work with and ride horses with us. In those groups, we integrate themes of respect and teamwork, problem solving, and communication. Overall, we do what we do because we see every day that the incredible power that, working with horses and utilizing horses has in the healing process for our clients, and how much of an impact the hands-on experiences with horses has on improving our clients' quality of life. Even more than that is the appeal is working with horses. Our clients can reach their therapeutic goals more quickly and more effectively. So before I turn it over to Mary, we've prepared a short video that I would love to share. And I'll put that on the screen so you can see a little bit in more detail about what we do.
At Equine Elders, we believe horses are magical, and it's said that the best thing for the inside of a person is the outside of a horse. The intuitive power of our horses offer healing and comfort to all participants. Through grooming, leading, painting, and learning with the horses, we help develop meaningful relationships and a sense of empowerment and independence. Individuals and groups have the opportunity to socialize, spend time in fresh air, and relax in a safe and nurturing environment. Our goal is to send everyone who comes through our doors home with a smile.
The horses are the backbone of the program, and everybody who comes out might have mostly elder communities and private clients with dementia. They have all formed a bond with the horses, whether they've been around horses, most of their lives or never. I'm going to just read you some of the comments from my clients, the elders. One lady who was in a wheelchair and the horse was standing next to her, she goes, "I feel like I am on a horse." She had grown up with horses, so just this beautiful memory came back to her. When I am with the horses, I don't feel as much pain. This is one of my favorites. "I will always remember being 90 because it's the first time I brushed a horse." This is a little slice of heaven. Can I live here in the barn? You can bring me half a sandwich each day. And the more they come out, the more they kind of start to remember things. I just see it, the ones who come out more consistently. Sarah with the music, I have one lady who comes out and she just walks up and down the aisle with the horse, and she's learned a new song. We had one song she really likes, and she has dementia and she sings along to the song now. And we have one man who the first time he came out, he smiled, and all the people who worked with him started crying because he never smiles, and now he smiles all the time. They show that everybody, whether the loved one is living at home or in a community, they're talking that they come home more at peace. They're quiet. They're so 90% of the caregivers report the peace they find from the time at the barn can last up to 10 days. It buoys their mood. They are less likely to resist care, and behavioral issues improve. So it's just a nice experience for all involved. Even the caretaker who comes out just gets this sense of peace being in a barn. And so that's kind of where we're at with that. Do you have any questions or?
I've sent the video over to Bob. He's going to see if he can play it. And I would also note that we'll put it on the website so anyone can see it there.
Right.
Can't get it going. Does anyone have any questions for either Mary or Sienna? I guess I would ask, I presume this is all private pay.
It is private pay. I did get a very generous grant from Next 50, who has allowed all the communities to come out this summer. I think I had 10 communities coming out and over 250 people came through. And so that was really nice, and they all love it, and they're all just hoping I get the grant again so they can come back next year. But it is a May to October romance, because they don't, a lot of don't like to come out in the cold. All my individuals brave the whole winter. They come out whenever they can.
That's great. Well, we'll send good wishes for another grant.
Yes,
so
thank you.
Can enjoy it. Dulcie, can we hear from you about Rolfing?
Hi, everyone. And thank you again, Barbara, for the privilege of talking to everyone today about Rolfing. And Rolfing is, I have a slideshow with words. And I'm also just going to talk a little bit, and then the words will be there for posterity, and I may skim through some of those, but I just wanted to say a few things about Rolfing, and then the rest of the words can kind of fill in a little bit later. I came into this work after being hit by a drunk driver. I had been a policy person and a researcher I have a PhD in political science and resource management and a lot of comparative analysis, running programs, some community projects. And this experience that I had of rehabbing from the accident introduced me to some alternative therapies, complementary therapies. And I was really struck by some of the incredible work that people do in this field. And I'm going to just show this slide here. Part of recovering from big accidents is having a lot of pain and chronic restriction and really wondering, like, is this going to be the rest of my life? And the answer is often no, but it can be a long and kind of winding road to get to a place where we're more comfortable and in a better alignment after a big trauma. And part of what happens with manual therapies like Rolfing is our job is to really talk to the nervous system and help the body understand, okay, this is where your joints are, this is where you are in alignment, this is what the spine can and can't do right now, and also to grow those limitations if there are any. Part of what happens with pain, speaking of neuroscience earlier, we're also in the neuroscience business, although it's not always obvious. The nervous system is throughout the body, and we want the brain to have a better understanding of what's happening in the body. That's part of the message of pain. It's not red in the body right here at the finger when you cut it. You get a cut, the signal goes to the brain, and the brain decides how much that's going to hurt before you have the pain. And anybody who's a parent may have noticed that when you have kids, if they fall, sometimes they look around first and decide, how much am I going to cry about this? Because it's not necessarily as painful when no one's watching, because they might want to get up and play again. But if someone might be there and there's some other outcome they might get, like maybe ice cream, it's going to hurt. They're going to scream about it. It's also, I don't want to say pain is all in the mind, but the mind mediates it, and so does the environment. So that's part of our work, is to help intervene. A good example of where we intervene is how many of you are familiar with the fact that chronic back pain is like one of the leading issues that is a chronic issue for Americans. And a lot of painkillers and opioids go into that stream of treatment, often well after the injury has healed. And that doesn't mean it's healed well, but this is kind of a chart about, you get the tissues are healed within weeks to months, depending upon the severity of an injury, but you can have pain for years. So I've had clients come in and say, yes, 10 years ago, I leaned over like this and picked up my wolfhound, like that way. That's not really a great way to pick things up. So they slipped a disc, but it was 5 or 10 years ago. So the brain is very sensitive to injuries that can threaten the central processing unit here, the spinal cord, the main nervous system. And it is very sticky with regard to pain in that area. Not so much right here. So often exterior injuries will be processed more readily and range of motion can come back a lot more quickly. Now, that being said, there's another factor. And Sarah, I'm looking right at you right now and thinking, you know, when there's a high stakes issue right here, like you're a flautist, or a pianist and you get hurt here, that's different. Then it does last a lot longer because of the fear of loss. So there's a contextual element here, which is if you're a surgeon or a musician and lots riding on the health of your hands, this is going to hurt a lot and for a long time because of the context. So part of our work is very sophisticated in that we're trying to address the context of the individual and the injury in which it happened, where the injury has occurred, and of course the severity, like the objective severity, meaning objective is a hard word to use here. So again, I'm hedging a little bit. You're probably like, I don't want to see her. She doesn't know what she's talking about, but it's very fluid. When people come in with an injury, like, oh, my elbow, it's never just the elbow. It has to do with the way the person's coming in, how they've had a past of injury or not, trauma in their life, and their future concerns. I mean, there's all sorts of things happening when people have an injury. So I'm going to move on here. The upshot here, and I think I'm probably clouding my own presentation here. Is that better? Now you can speak. So touch, manual therapy has been known for quite a while. Rolfing has a specific approach to it, which I'll get to in a second. But touch is part of what makes humans social creatures. So whenever we're touching in a kind of friendly way, that is generally a way of downregulating the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system. There's also a very mechanical part where there are certain receptors, kind of some of them are deeper, some on the surface, some are actually like the hairs on your arm. There's receptors for when the wind blows them. We have all sorts of receptors. And when we use touch, different depths, different angles, we're stimulating them and helping the brain understand what's happening with the body and mapping it. Body mapping, some of you may have heard of that. It's a really important way of rebalancing and kind of, I like to say, pushing an update to the brain's understanding of the body. You can't have a brain without a body. The way the nervous system is structured, it permeates the body. And of course, the brain and spinal cord are the CPU. So when we're pushing these updates, it's helping the quality of communications in the body. It's not fuzzy, it's not staticky, it's very clear. When we have more clarity, we tend to have less pain. When we move more easily, because we have that clarity, movement, as some of you may know, I think probably both of our presenters touched on this a little bit. When we have movement and activity in the body, that's a natural analgesic. The body reads in stasis as threat, because whenever you've seen animals have a habit of, if they get injured, they go into a bush and lay there, they're going to recover or maybe not. And so whenever we're too static, for example, if you're in a hospital bed, you can't move, that's why they have those beds that move now. The body really does not prefer to not move at all. I can say more about this, but basically when we use touch and get the ancillary benefits, we're reducing pain. And the word pain, I'd like to just kind of broaden that to, we're reducing imbalance, we're reducing restriction. And I think we're increasing or promoting vitality, because when we have more movement, we have more potential for the things we think we can do. So then we're talking to the brain again. It's not just, oh, can the wrist move? It's like, well, now that the wrist can move, what is possible for me now? This is very important for people. I'm going to leave it here for a second. Those are a lot of words. When we're looking at aging and midlife and beyond, and not even midlife, I think, I'd like to echo what the other presenters have said. This is really for everyone, but when we're in midlife, between having children and having seniors and caretaking, and I'm also a caretaker, we also have to manage our own health and wellness and vitality to be able to provide care. So part of what I'm looking at and thinking about is, how can this person coming in here make the steps that are helpful to them? When if someone comes in and says, I'm not feeling it, I don't feel like I used to, everything's harder. How can we lift that pattern? How can we get more freedom? And that's part of what our work is about. So just a couple of words here. Hold on a second. Come on, why isn't it tabbing? There. Oh, I think I tabbed too far. These are a lot of words. I'll just say a couple of things about Ida Rolf. She was a person. She was a pretty exceptional woman. She had a PhD in biochemistry. She studied fascia, which is the connective tissues between muscle compartments. And she also was like, why can't we help people with severe neurological issues? And started experimenting in the 70s. That was like an easier thing to do. You put someone in a warehouse and start working, and Nowadays, human subjects would not let you do that. But at any rate, they came up with some amazing things. And part of what she came up with was, we want to also think about the body in gravity. Some of you may have heard of Buckminster Fuller and tensegrity. Like we can have a buckyball or a geodesic dome that has a certain shape that's easy to stand in gravity and at different kinds of gravity. And our bodies are designed to be in gravity. So that's part of what informs our work. You can read more about it, but I want to just say that because part of our work is done on a table, sitting, standing, and maybe moving. So it's not just a kind of the client receives the work, it's a participatory approach. So I did it again, I apologize. Whoops, that's too far. It's a safe therapy, and some people have heard about Rolfing being very heavy-handed, and I can just dispel that right now. Some people made their name by doing that in the 70s and 80s. That's not the mainstream. We work together. We know what level of touch is helping you achieve, for example, movement through the wrist, so that you don't have to have a carpal tunnel surgery, for example. Do a lot of safe movements. Like I might ask someone, while I'm doing something with, this is a thigh, I might hold the thigh or turn it while you're doing something with the ankle in order to help the leg, kind of have a better movement of the fibula, something like that. But it's also about empowering the client to understand, when I'm doing certain things, how does that help me? Are there things that I can do at home to help take care of myself? What does movement do for me now that I'm freed up some of these restrictions or pains? So I know I'm going on a little bit too much, so I will just make it quick here. We treat a lot of conditions, and sometimes we're a last resort for people who've tried many things. A lot of professional athletes see us because they already know about what we can do for performance, but amongst the populace, the word Rolfing kind of doesn't sound that appealing. And we've been around for 45 years, but we're not necessarily like physical therapy, but we're taking a holistic approach to balancing coordination, chronic aches and pains, range of motion, postpartum and surgery. Those are traumas to the body that we have a lot of value add in treating, and also structural aging. And I'll invite you to consider when older people, and this could be a variety of ages, end up needing support for walking. It's usually the body gets a little smaller, kind of comes in, and you might end up on a cane or a walker. That tends to be, we tend to try to shrink and bend over a little bit to become closer to the ground. And the steps get much smaller. Part of what starts that process is losing the feet, losing the openness of the feet and the support of the three arches of the feet. That's something longer topic, but when the heel can't strike and the toes can't paw the ground, kind of like a cat's paw, the rest of the body, the chain through the back of the body, up the spine, and even into the neck, will lose its suppleness because it's not being allowed to go through range of motion that would be allowed by a full stride of the foot and then the leg. We become smaller, we move less, and then it's self-reinforcing. So this can happen to people at any age. We see it more often in people who are considered elderly, but aging can be very structural. You can see people who are very spry in their 70s, partly because body's open, the feet have a tone to them, the legs are able to swing, the spine is upright. And that's our bread and butter. So let me show you a couple of clients here. This woman came to me. On the left is before, on the right is after a session one. We're known for working in kind of pushing packets to people in a 8 or 10 series, because the body likes things in digestible chunks. Just like when you learn to ride a bicycle, you go out, you don't just ride it for 10 hours and then you master it, you kind of try again and try again. This woman has come in, as you can see, with a rotation in her spine and lack of support in the legs. That's where the kind of A-frame comes from. And the neck is kind of crunched down a little bit. Here you can see right after the session, she's upright, chest is open, legs are more supportive, and the neck is a bit easier here. And this is her from behind. You can see again that structure and the little bit of rotation. See how the right ribs are rotated forward towards the back wall? This is coming down. And here, much more even the way her t-shirt hangs helps tell the story here. This is something that we look at as Rolfers. We're trained to look at people with or without their shirt on and that kind of thing. This is a woman who spends a lot of time in a computer and she likes to ski. This is a different case altogether. This is a much harder pattern. This is a semi-professional athlete. And I put him in here for a reason. It's a much more subtle change after a session, and he's in the middle of a series of work here. Notice this space right here behind the back of his neck here. And on this side, how it's open, more open right there. And then you may also notice that the chin is further back, and see how the pants are laying here, kind of tilted towards the ground, the shorts, and then here they're a little more horizontal. So when someone is a professional and they've got a really strong pattern in their body that they're using over and over again under high stakes, the change can be a little bit less. The previous client, she is not using her body quite so hard, so it's easier to make a change. But this is a good example of someone who is, using their body very well, but can still benefit by getting more upright and having less compression in the spine. Part of our job is to look at the body as a system. And aging, if we think about the bodies like the whole system is it's age now, the pattern of aging is to become smaller and less movement. We can tease some of that out. So that's true for whether you're 40 or 80. The work does take some energy. So depending upon the frailty of the client, it may not be the most effective form of work. A cranial sacral approach or light physical therapy might be better depending upon age. But right now I'm actually thinking more about, caretaking and its toll with the energy expenditure and moving people and having so many irons in the fire. It's like, how do we get our own vitality back when we're doing the caretaking? One way to do that actually is if you're game for it. Do I have a minute here, Barbara?
Just a minute or two.
Okay, that's what I've got here. So I was going to invite everybody just to, I can't see you all at the moment because I don't want to press too many buttons, but if you could just turn your head, sit easily, and then turn your head slowly to the right and the left. Just notice, is it restricted? How are you feeling today? I'm going to invite you to just put your hand on your breastbone, which is that bone right in your chest there, and just let it rest lightly there. And take a nice inhale and just imagining the ribs expanding in all directions. So and you may notice that the ribs more or less move. We have our own movement inside of us. And when we do that, actually, it's part of session 1. Let's do one more. When we move those ribs, we're actually affecting the tone of the spine because they're attached in the back to the spine. So now try turning your head again. And some of you might notice there might be a little more freedom there. Did anybody get that at all? I can't see. So one of the things we do in a first session is work on this expansion, because once we start to tease out the rib connection to the spine, many things are possible in the neck, the chronic low back pain, the legs below, which are trying to carry whatever restrictions are above and beyond. So I'm just going to finish just by saying there's a lot more here, including also I'm part of a health coaching group, and that's often of great interest to people who are caretaking. Often not as much for people who are in assisted or at that level because they're already receiving care around their nutrition and diet, but for people who are looking for wellness because they're burning it at both ends and can't take care of themselves as well. This is something else that I'm involved with, partly because my work with a clinical nutritionist for some of my own clients has delivered so much benefit to them. I decided to get involved as a health coach. So that information is in the presentation. And I want to close with just showing you a quick video, if that's okay. This is a woman who came to me. I don't know how to do the audio, so I'm just going to show you. This woman came after an episiotomy and some leg injuries. She'd had a lot of difficulty, and it had been 10 years since she'd walked comfortably. Can you see this video on the left?
Dulcie, we're still seeing your, unless maybe.
Hold on. Let me share screen. Is that what I'm supposed to do?
No, you're sharing the screen, but we're seeing the PowerPoint.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we're just her on the sidewalk is what we're.
Yeah, we're going to focus on her on the sidewalk.
Okay.
Here we go. So here's my client. She's shared this with permission just for you to look at. This is her walk for the last 10 years before she came to see me last year. And she was basically at her wit's end, like, how can it's painful, everything's hard. And she just felt pretty hopeless, actually. So that was before session 1. And this is after session 1. And after session 1, she was just like almost in tears because she could walk with it. This is not the easiest walk, but she has a lot less pain. Then here she is a little while later, a couple more sessions down the road, and you can see now she's yeah, she feels stronger. Okay. And also you might see the rolling, like it's just more rolling. It's less kind of hobbling from side to side. This is later in the year. you can see it's gotten dark out and the leaves have fallen, but that's, you know, it's a process what we go through here. So here she comes down the sidewalk now after her session 10.
How's it going?
So I don't know if you can hear that, but she's happy. So I wanted to share that because it can be life-changing to go through this process and become more vital and have less pain in your body. And I invite you to, if you have any questions, to follow up. And right now I have time for a few questions, but thank you for allowing me to talk about something that means a lot to me.
Thank you, Dulcie. Does anyone have any questions for Dulcie?
I actually have a question for everybody. And that is, you know, we haven't talked very much about the cost of any of these therapies. And so I think for the audience that we have today and future audiences who will see this recording, they'd probably like to know more about that. So we can start with you, Dulcie, and then kind of work backwards if we can.
Sure. So cost of Rolfing, going cost in Denver can range between 150 to 200. That's actually Denver Boulder corridor, I would say. I'm about 160. And usually in Colorado, we don't take insurance. There are a couple people who do work in bigger practices with a chiropractor who will do billing of insurance. They can try to do that. It's not that straightforward in this state. Some other states do actually do that, but not in the state of Colorado at this time. And FSA and HSA are actually able to be used. So that's the kind of the Rolfing side. Does that help answer your question?
And that's per session, I assume.
Yes.
Okay.
And that means for me, that's about an hour and 20 minutes. So for some people, that would be for 55 minutes. I tend to do more movement education in my sessions, like the walking up and down, and we'll do some exercises. So I just build that in because I think it leads to a better result.
Okay, thank you.
And I can attest to that. I'm a client. I'll admit to that on camera.
A full disclosure.
Okay, good. Sienna or Mary, would you want to comment?
I try and keep my sessions as inexpensive as possible. So they are very inexpensive. That's for a private, most dementia we'll do about a half hour to 40 minutes. And so that's $30. And then some make it 45 minutes to an hour. So that's $45. And the communities right now are getting able to be on the grants. So that's not a cost to them at this point. And I also forgot to share earlier that we do caregiver retreats. We'll get a bunch of caregivers together because they need, they're a lost demographic, I would say, that isn't taken care of. So that price will just depend on how many come, but that stays pretty low also.
Sarah?
So for music therapy in our office in Aurora, it's $105 for an hour. And then if we go out to a facility, it's $115 for an hour. Our community groups are often low cost or no cost at all. So those are a super affordable option.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that information, all three of you.
Can I add something, Bob?
Yes.
Do I have, is it okay to stay on the same topic for a second? Yeah, that is one of the barriers to this work. And, you know, I have a couple, every practitioner has a way of, I have a couple of fixed income people that I usually am doing every quarter, you know, to kind of do my community work. Like my barista who doesn't have good benefits, she needs work. So how do I manage that as a sole proprietor? You know, there's only so much of one person to spread around the piece of bread. But there's this other part where usually a person comes in working on a pattern for a long time, and this is true mentally, this is true for all, like what they're doing with their lifestyle, the types of TV that they watch, the whether they walk or not, any sports or not. And they come and I want an answer to this pain. And I've come to you. It's like, okay, let's just pretend it's been only 5 years since you've been doing this thing with whatever pain you have, whatever structure you have. And let's pretend that 8,000 hours are in a year. It's actually 83 something. So let's leave the math out. It's 8,000. 8 times 5 is 40,000 hours you've been working on this pattern. And you're going to come and see me for 10. So I try to put it in perspective. It's like you're asking for a life change. And then you don't want to spend like 5 hours and the amount of that it takes to do that. So that's another piece I like to put in there, because yeah, it's definitely not cheap, but neither is a new car or an appliance or, you know, your subscriptions to whatever you're watching. And going out to dinner is actually kind of comparable. I mean, you know, so it's like, okay, maybe don't go out to dinner once a month and you come instead to do this, to do the pain thing, because that's a 40,000 hour pattern we're working on. Most patterns are actually 10 years and beyond. So that's like an 80,000 hour pattern. So it's like, what are we willing to invest to overcome 80,000 hours worth of whatever we were doing before that got us to a place? It was useful, but it had a cost. So I'm just putting that in there because when we're looking for big changes, especially in midlife, it's like sometimes we need to turn the course. It requires an investment. It's also, as a partnership, we're investing time together. And I know that they're coming to see me and we're spending a lot more time than we would just to, like, you know, go to the doctor and get a quick checkup and maybe a prescription. So that's another piece of complementary therapy, is we're spending the time that maybe the doctor doesn't have.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Another question that I have for all of you, and I think Dulcie, you kind of shared this already, but also I would ask Sarah first, and that is, you know, what was the trigger for you to say, this is what I want to do with my life?
I have a musical family, and so that was in my background. And really, I wanted to do something where I could see immediate results with people and know that what I was doing was making a difference. So that I went to the career counselor during my undergrad studies, middle of my junior year in college, and they told me about the field of music therapy. And as I learned more, I thought it was a pretty awesome combination of being able to change lives and actually have joy in the process.
Okay, thank you. So Mary first, and then Sienna.
I actually read an article when I was in college about equine therapy. And I said to myself, someday when I have the time, I'm going to go do this. And that's what I did. I've worked with, both Sienna and I are certified therapeutic riding instructors. And so I've worked probably with every disability there is. When that first group came to me, there was a guy named Leonard who was very belligerent and kind of went after the aides and stuff like that. And that's when they brought him out, and he didn't want to engage. He didn't want to talk. And then one day I was trying to get him to do something, and one of the aides goes, "Oh, that's just him. Don't worry about it." And I go, "Well, that's my job, you know, to engage him." And so I was sitting talking to him, and I said, "What would you like to do?" And right at that moment, my little horse Flower started just kind of nudging him, and he turned over and looked at her, and he goes, "Oh, Flower, you're such a good girl." And then he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, you know, I used to haul horses around and I did racing and stuff like this." And it just, that moment broke him open to talk and out of his shell. And my heart just went out to that demographic. And I haven't worked with any other group since, because it was just, they're just so wonderful. And when I see what the horses do, and I mean, I'd like to take credit, but it really is all the horses that do the work.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sienna?
So I got into the field of equine assisted therapy when I was very young. I have been horseback riding for basically my whole life. And there was a therapeutic program at the barn where I rode. And being a young person with some, decent horse skills and lots of interest in being in the barn all the time, I, got roped into volunteering with the therapy programs from a really young age, and basically was hooked ever since. I knew that was what I wanted to do, and I went through school and pursued being involved in equine assisted therapy, and moved to Colorado, and have just been continuing on since then.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to hear all, your stories. And Dulcie, is there anything else you'd like to share about how you got into this besides your car accident?
Yeah, well, I actually just was, thinking, I wish I had known earlier in some ways. I came to this in midlife, partly because of the accident. It took me a few years after it to kind of, think about it. And I was in my other work and not as happy, just like, okay, policy work is very interesting. I like that it's effective, energy efficiency is great, but I felt like I was missing that feeling of contribution. And just, I'm glad I came to it in midlife because I'd been through a lot. So I could empathize more with clients who are coming in with so many things happening. I think, Mary, you were saying you've worked with everything under the sun. It's like, after you've lived a few years, like 50 of them, it's easier to have had a few things happen, or to know somebody more closely that's had something happen, and how they've struggled, or the therapies they've used and haven't been able to be successful with, or have. It just informs the ability to really be present for people coming in with a lot of difficulty, and that feeling of, how am I going to get through this, and to do that journey together. So there's a lot of great people out there who are young too. And just for me, I don't think I was ready yet. So I'm very glad that at midlife, this opportunity, I researched it, I interviewed people at different schools, some of the faculty, and decided, I think as a midlife person, I can offer something. And I'm glad that I did it. It's very rewarding work.
Good, thank you. Okay, Barbara, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any other questions. I was just going to ask if anyone else does. We will be posting this with some editing for our mishap with trying to post the video. I will get that video up this afternoon on our website. I put the website and our contact information in the chat room. So if you want to see the video that Mary was trying to show, it will be there and will be working. And I want to thank our presenters. It's great work that you do to help those around us. And to those of you who've taken the time to be with us, thank you for being here.